Howdy all, happy Wednesday. It's game 7 day, which is always nice. We're getting prepared for obviously the Stanley Cup final after this game. We'll do a little pre-show stuff. Have to start off with this because, I used to be a big NFL fan, and my love of the NFL has dissipated over the years, mostly because I think it's a league that doesn't care about their players. There's an injury almost every play. I think
guys were carted off yesterday, ACL injuries in OTAs.
Yeah, there's the Ray Rice stuff and the Aaron Hernandez stuff, the thuggery that has been in the league that has seemed to grow over the years. That just turns me off. I just it's not the league that I followed, and I used to play fantasy football. I don't do that anymore because it's just gotten really bad. And now getting into the political realm, and I don't want to get into the political aspect of it, but because we have a certain person in the White House that turned on the NFL because he was spurned by them a couple times, he decided he wanted
most recently Buffalo.
Yeah, Please, how would the world have changed if the NFL had let Donald Trump buy the Buffalo Bill and not run for president? There you go.
A lot of women would be upset because Bon Jovi would be his partner. Maybe he would have stopped touring.
No. Bon Jovi was part of the.
He was another group. Okay.
Yeah, Bon Jovi. This is the reason why Bon Jovi is hated in Buffalo, because Bon Jovi was partnered with Larry Tannenbaum, and they would have moved the team to Toronto. That's why he'll never play Buffalo again, because nobody would buy that jerk's ticket. But the NFL came out today with a statement regarding the anthem, and this is the thing. I really don't care if Colin Kaepernick had gotten down on one knee. I think the optics were bad. I thought what the NFL was going to do was have the anthem before the 1 o'clock broadcast. Have it at say 12:50, and not given the platform to the players. But what they're doing is they're telling the players that if you don't want to stand, if you don't want to stand and acknowledge the flag and the anthem, stay in the locker room. This is not a solution, Russ.
It's not. I mean, look, end of the day, where was this outrage pre-2009 when teams didn't even come out? They were in the locker room. They never came out. You didn't know what they were doing. Then in 2009, the league was paid to be patriotic, and then all of a sudden they started coming out for the anthem. I think that's as big a part of the problem as anything, because then all of a sudden it pulled back the curtain on all this. At the end of the day, you're in the United States. You can do whatever you want during the anthem, and that is the way it is. I think the league should have just gone back to the old rules and be done with it, and it would have been the simple solution. And then everybody can do what they want in the locker room, which is fine. That's probably the way it should be anyhow. I mean, again, you shouldn't force patriotism on anybody. My dad's a veteran. We all have different beliefs about it, but nobody should have patriotism forced on them. And I think the league now is this is going to be an issue that will still be ongoing because they didn't take care of it.
Right. I think they just exacerbated the situation, Peter.
Yeah, I really feel for all my good American friends down in the South, in your country, because I think the idea of what an anthem means has basically been remarketed, and the NFL is to blame for that. Mm-hmm. And when they started taking money to associate certain aspects of veterans and the military with the anthem, it changed how the public views the anthem. And yes, we will always have, no matter what country you're in, you will associate people who have served for your freedom and the pursuit of liberty, no matter what country you're in, who have sacrificed their lives, with an anthem. That you can't get away from that. But not everyone believes the same things about an anthem. Mm-hmm. And, it just seems like there's been a really funky marketing campaign that's gone on for a number of years now that's had an unintended consequence. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's going to take a group of leaders to stand up and say, we may not all believe in the same thing, but we believe in our country, and everyone's allowed to use the anthem for what they feel it's worth.
Yeah, it's the anthem.
And that's really important, right? And that's where I feel for you guys, because you're in a PR battle around your anthem, and that should never have happened.
It's the anthem, and it's the flag. It's the sanctification of. And listen to me. I'm not in. I personally would never burn the American flag in protest, but there were people who did it during the Vietnam War and things of that nature, and it's I guess legally protected speech. So going in that, like I just
like, what's the difference? Like I wouldn't burn the flag either, right? But how is it any classier to have a U.S. flag as a bikini or a Speedo?
I agree. I think that's
like, what's the difference here?
I think that's desecration as well. I really do.
There's no difference. So it's like that's why this country you're allowed to do all of it.
Right. Now, going away from that with the NFL to something that affects the game, and I heard this on the radio, and I don't know how close this morning. I don't know how close this is, Russ, but this goes in line with how the NFL is trying to change the rules of the game based on the concussion lawsuits and all the concerns. They're talking about phasing out kickoffs, and if that happens,
I'm not talking about it. It's phased out.
They passed it. It's going to happen.
They passed it.
Oh, okay. I mean, I didn't know this. I thought there was something they were thinking about. I mean, if that's I'm sorry. I mean, this is. I know that these sports are facing billion-dollar lawsuits, and they're trying to.
Oh no. Okay, so now they've sort of. Oh, wait, no, 2018. Hold on. No, they are still looking into it, but
right.
I was told that it's going to happen.
It's like I believe it's like in like what it would be the competition committee type of situation with the NHL. They're thinking about it. They're pondering it. I mean, we're talking about an aspect of the game that, I mean, if you eliminate that, I mean, it changes the game, really. It's like, okay, so what's going to happen? So after a touchdown, the other team is just going to start on the 30-yard line. Is that what's going to happen?
That's
what it sounds like.
With no blocking or anything. So yeah, they'll just take the ball over, I believe.
So what it's going to be like college and now pro football overtime, where there's no kickoff and you start at a certain point. You're getting a sanitized version of pro football, and this is the thing. I mean, this is going to, especially.
I think pro football is doomed anyhow.
Right, but we have to
long term.
But we have to be concerned about how this bleeds to other sports, especially contact sports, especially sports like hockey, where we are starting to see. I mean, I never thought we'd get to the point so quickly, Peter, that fighting was completely like it was. It's very, very rare now. We see it once every 5 games. It's like, I still get excited and interested when there's a fight, but we don't see it enough. And now with suspensions and with things of that nature, how long is it going to be before like really hard checking is gone in this game?
I think that'll be an evolution, not because people want hard checking out, but I think what you're going to see is that GMs are slowly waking up to the idea that it's better to ice a skilled team rather than one that runs around and chases the puck and chases the hit and trying to separate player from the puck. And it's just a slow evolution with that, right? And
that's why everybody liked Olympic hockey, Peter, with NHL players.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, and we can see, and we'll start the show after this. The thing is that the difference in this Washington-Tampa series has been that Washington has a couple players in Smith-Pelly and in Wilson who are separating the player from the puck, and that's been the difference between them being eliminated and going to a Game 7. So I think that eliminating
part of the game too, Mike, that I don't think will go away. Here's the thing. There was once a guy, I don't remember the doctor's name, who basically said the way the NFL is played, it's a concussion-making machine.
Right.
The NHL does have a concussion problem, but nowhere near to the level of the NFL because of the way the play is. And so if they eliminate the headshot, you'll still get the hard body check. You'll still be able to separate the puck. You'll still have some pretty great checks, and I think fans will be happy. But you won't be leading with your head. You won't be hitting the head against the glass. I mean, again, we only have to go back less than 10 years ago. And how did Monday Night Football start off? With both helmets crashing into each other and just dust showing. I think we're far away from that point now.
Yeah, and just to finish this, the rule that the NFL passed this a couple months ago regarding using your helmet, that's the way that players have been taught to tackle for decades. And now you're going to say, well, you can't use your helmet as part of the – I mean, give me a break. This is all – yeah.
I mean, I think what the NFL can learn from is a little bit from rugby. And I played rugby all my life. And yes, rugby does have concussion problems, but not to the same extent. You don't have the same body armor players are wearing. You don't have the same helmets, and tackling is a totally different thing. And I think there's something that can be learned from that. I'm not sure what yet, but there's probably a way of saying these guys are doing it with nothing on their heads. Why can't we figure out a way to reduce what happens so that we have still have head protection and increase the safety? And it's not just about headshots. It's the way you block. You got to remember, one of the things that people really get confused about concussions, and let's remember this, and I'll say it now and I'll say it again. My wife worked in brain injuries for years and years and years. There's still a lot of snake oil about what people understand about concussions, because the word concussion isn't a thing. It's an event. You've concussed your brain. What you've done is you've given your brain a brain injury. What that brain injury is not the concussion. The concussion is the event. We just named it as a catch-all for things. Right. You have a brain injury. What your brain injury is a completely different thing, how it's diagnosed, what it means. So with that, we have to look at the idea that someone gets hit and their head doesn't get hit. You can still get a brain injury because you're rattling around inside your head.
That side impact is the worst.
The side impact, and that's it. So you have to take away things that people can't brace themselves for, and learn from how hits are leveled, how bodies move and shake to change things. Yeah. I just think you'll see a natural evolution as leagues and players and coaches and teams become aware of this. And if they're sincere in their beliefs that they want to reduce it, it'll be a slow process. But getting mad about it and saying everyone needs to be 100% protected, no, you got to take off the bubble wrap. You got to learn from things and have a process to learn. And that's where everyone's got to come to the table.
I got one thing to say about rugby, because I did have a brush with rugby in college. The way I used to play flag football is I used to get penalized, and I was kind of like a tough player. And one of the players and one of the coaches from the rugby team at University of Houston, so it was a pretty big deal that we're traveling rugby team, asked me to be on the rugby team, but I turned it down because I said I liked my team.
So you were tackling in flag football? Is that what was going on?
I got penalized a few times. Let's just leave it there.
You goon.
As rugby players like to say, rugby's a barbarian's game played by gentlemen, whereas soccer's a gentleman's game played by barbarians.
No, I agree with that.
And divers. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, May 23rd, 2018.
Hi, I'm Peter Tessier in Winnipeg.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. As I said earlier, we have Game 7 tonight of the Capitals and Tampa Bay Lightning at the Amalie Arena in Tampa. Not a lot to be said about we can go back to talk about the 6 games where this series has been, but I think it's obviously all about.
It doesn't matter. Who cares?
Right, exactly. It's all about Game 7. It's all about where the two teams
whatever happened in the other games is irrelevant. It's a one-game series.
It's where the two teams are now, and what we can expect tonight. Now, I have to say that I continue, and maybe I will be proved wrong if Washington does win. I still believe that Tampa is the more talented of the two teams, but you'd have to be blind to say that Washington hasn't played better overall during the series. And in the games that Tampa has won, they've won close games, and they've won with Vasilevsky playing out of his mind. I mean, Russ, I don't think home ice advantage is really going to mean anything. I mean, I don't know what the keys to this game are going to be, other than Washington probably has to stay out of the penalty box, because Tampa's power play has been nearly lethal all series.
Yeah, and it has been, but last game, for whatever reason, Washington's penalty kill was great. And that was something where all of a sudden, if Tampa's not scoring power play goals, how are they scoring? Right. And I think that's still the most overlooked thing in this series, because – again, it's mostly been from the power play. The other thing is, another thing that's been very overlooked, and I just saw it online. They have a thing in Capitals practice where somebody at the end of practice takes like a hot lap. They go as fast as they can around the rink. Barry Trotz did it today for Washington after practice. And everybody says they have this all-for-one mentality. I truly believe it's because Barry Trotz will be leaving the Capitals, and his players want him to leave with a Stanley Cup, as much as they wanted to win it. But I think it has galvanized them to the point where I don't know if John Cooper can manufacture anything close to that. I don't think he can. I also think in this one-game series, the big players, the Wilsons, the Devontae Smith-Pellies, those guys are going to have the Orpiks, are going to have a massive impact. They started to show it last game. I think they are going to bang around Tampa. Tampa's going to have to play more physical. This will be a battle of that. I do think it'll be a one-goal game. I do think it's potential overtime. Mm-hmm. Tampa's got a lot of injuries too, not that Washington didn't, but ones that we don't talk about. Ones like Dan Girardi practically, could have been carried off the ice last game when he was run over. And also McDonough, he's pretty much bruised up everywhere. He's got it on his eye. We saw him take a shot to the side. Mm-hmm. Like, these are two big, important players for them that we don't even talk about being banged up. They're just going to play. And so it's clear that Tampa's not at 100% now. And Backstrom is at least managing his injury to the point where he was a factor last game.
Right.
I think that's why I like Washington in this game and why you're going to lose a plate of wings.
Well, jeez. Yeah, but it'll be, like I said, it'll be in a good place and not that crap hole anchor bar. But this is the thing. I think one of the things that Cooper can do, and we'll see how this plays out. I mean, because we know Smith-Pelly is on their second line, at least, and Wilson's been on the top line.
Yes.
He can, with the last change, match up players that can better deal with their physicality. Like, I mean, a guy like Palat, a guy like Killorn, a guy like Ryan Callahan can match up better against those guys than if they're head up against Stamkos and Kucherov. So I think that's one of the things that Cooper is going to try to do, is try to keep his skill guys away from those big freight trains.
No, I agree. I think they will do that. Again, let's go back to the well. I mean, Kucherov did get on the board 2 games ago, last game, -2. He's got to do something in this game. If they want to win, he has to be he can't be a passenger. He has to be one of the drivers.
Well, Peter, it's funny because the last couple games when I've been listening in on Tampa and Washington, because I was covering the Marlies game up in Toronto, I get to listen to Dave Mishkin and Phil Esposito. Phil Esposito, if you want an idea of what Don Cherry would be like as a color commentator, listen to Phil Esposito, because he's reacting like a fan during the play-by-play. And I don't know how Mishkin doesn't go over and bash him over the head with a baseball bat or something like that, because
Espo's bigger. That's why.
Right. He just doesn't shut up. It's unbelievable. But the one actual thing that Esposito said that was a good point was during the play in the last game, and it was just before the end of the second period where I guess Kucherov hit one off the crossbar and almost tied the game, was that Kucherov was like in a slumber through most of that game, and
he played 21 minutes.
Yeah, he's arguably their best player, Peter. So I mean, I don't know how much of you watched this series, but I know you're probably concentrating on it more now. I mean, what are your feelings overall in the series?
Well, I mean, it feels like Washington now is sort of playing to establish a legacy of being able to overcome a hurdle. They got one, they beat Pittsburgh, they moved on, but now it's sort of like they went up, they went down, and I kind of think Washington has a little bit of advantage going into this game, simply because they've got a bigger motivation here. I think there's a little more, and some people call it pressure. I don't think the pressure's there. I think the motivation's there now. Mm-hmm. And that's a different kind of drive, right? Yeah. I think they can taste it. They were down 3-2. They came back and won, and Tampa's got to wonder, what happens next? We had them, and we couldn't do it. And I just think Washington has been getting more out of its players than Tampa has. And again, I haven't watched it super closely. I'm kind of looking back and trying to look at different things and sort of get a feel for it.
There's no question about that.
And if that's the case, then I like Washington going into the game tonight. I feel they've got a a better motivation than Tampa does. I think Tampa's looking at survival now. Washington's looking at going to where they've always wanted to be. And I think that's a stronger sort of
I think Washington has gotten more bang for the buck out of their players. I mean I clearly think that Tampa is the more talented and more deep of the two teams, but they haven't. I mean, they were dominant against the Bruins. After that game 1 loss, they took the Bruins to the cleaners. They cleaned their clocks. And you haven't seen that Tampa team. I mean, even when they were down 2-0 going to Washington, the games in Washington, the first game 3 was a comfortable margin. Game 4, Vasilevsky, he made almost 40 saves, and game 5, I mean, it was a close game. So it's like, now we don't know whether that Tampa team that played in the Boston series will show up tonight. Maybe they're not playing as well because of what Russ said, wear and tear, but. I think pressure is still on. I don't think Washington's playing with house money here. I think the pressure, the reputation of being a choke artist is still there. They vanquished.
They lost that in Pittsburgh. I think they lost that.
No, Russ, because it's all about. It's not about Pittsburgh. It's about winning the Stanley Cup.
No, I think it was about Pittsburgh first.
Stanley Cup. It was something. It was. I mean, Pittsburgh was part of it, but just like with the Red Sox, it was the Yankees, but it was also breaking the 86-year streak. I think so. I think Tampa poses as much of an impediment on the Capitals and the pressure to win this game as beating Pittsburgh does. So I mean. If they get down 1-0, I'm going to be very curious to see what happens if they rise to the challenge or if they fold, because I still think that team that has folded in the past is still there.
Okay, and it is possible. Here's an interesting thing, though. So I look up Chris Kunitz, right, who's 38.
Right. And
there were times in the playoffs where he played 4 or 5 minutes a game. He has 1 point in 16 games, and that point came 2 games ago. That's it. Now, since Washington has been banging Tampa around, the last 3 games, he's played 11 minutes, 14 minutes, and 13 minutes. Unless Chris Kunitz is scoring, that's a win for Washington. That's like a dead spot on the roster. He's not going to hurt you defensively,
right?
But he's really not going to give you anything offensively.
No, I mean, okay, he's won 4 Stanley Cups.
I get it, but
that's why he's there. If he's
doesn't work anymore in this era.
I know, and he's not as fast anymore. So maybe that experience. I mean, I think he was like the poor man's answer to Justin Williams. They wanted somebody with Stanley Cup credentials, with wins, and somebody who they could put in there and say this is the way you play. And he's still doing that, but he's doing it at a lower level now, and he's not the player that played on Sidney Crosby's wings. So I think all you get is the name on the back of the jersey, and you're not, unless he all of a sudden rises and scores a couple goals tonight. Yeah, he's pretty much a nothing there.
Which is possible, and I'll tell you, there's even a headline from the Tampa Tribune. Tampa Bay's Chris Kunitz brings unique track record into Game 7. Okay, this isn't Dave Anderchuk. I was there for the Dave Anderchuk run. Dave Anderchuk was a lot better than Chris Kunitz is right now.
Yeah.
And he was a lot more effective and could do those kinds of Anderchuk things where you could give him a headline. I can't give Chris Kunitz a headline based on what he did before. I got to look at what the guy's doing now.
Dave Anderchuk was still a force on the power play at age 40, standing in front of the net. Now keys to this game, and obviously you're going to say, like, if you're talking about Tampa, you need Stamkos and Kucherov to go off. You need. But I think the key to this game, other than Vasilevsky, will eliminate the goaltenders because that's a given. Yeah. I think the key to the victory for Tampa is Victor Hedman. I think Victor Hedman is going to probably have to play 27, 28 minutes and is going to have to contribute offensively. And when he wants to, he's unstoppable because he's so big. So, I mean,
there's another guy like that. I know it. Where did Winnipeg? He plays for Winnipeg. What's his name?
Bafluglin?
Yes.
Bafluglin, yeah.
It's easy to say. It's hard to do. That's why he's sitting at home now. Like, it just is. I mean, he's capable. There's no question. But has Victor Hedman played way too many minutes this year because the defense is a little askew there? He may have.
Yeah, I mean that happens, right? And you're good. I mean, but part of playoffs, right, is there are some guys who can soak up minutes and roll, and it, like, as if it's the missing gear that they never had all season, and they can go. And that's the true test of teams that go far, I think, is that there's a couple guys who always stand out and do something exceptional beyond what they're known for. And I mean, right now, Vegas as a team is doing it as a whole team, and Marc-Andre Fleury, right? Like, just he's found another way to do something that's incredible. You know, who's doing it for Washington right now? Who's doing it for Tampa? It's those guys that are going to determine their fate, whether it's this game or the next series.
Now,
Someone's
okay,
let's come in and be that guy.
Yeah, it'll be a really exciting, and this is you know, if you're a fan of multiple sports, it's going to be a good sports night because you have Game 5 of Cavs and Celtics in the NBA. You've got this game, you got Game 7 of this. I'll be watching both of those, plus the Marlies game for the Calder Cup Eastern Conference. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. So
I will say this one last thing.
Yeah,
I know before there's been times when Cooper would go with 7D. I think Washington's made that impossible for him to go with 7D because of their physical play from the forwards. It's like he needs to have enough forwards in there.
I was wondering whether Cooper, and this is probably a long shot because, you know, guys like Corey Conacher or somebody who's fresh being inserted in the lineup in Game 7. I know you had a couple guys, you know, Adam Ernie or Matthew Pekka or somebody. You know, they have guys who are not playing in the series who are talented, and if a lot of people are worn down, if you get even one fresh body can make a difference in a Game 7. So I'm wondering whether he'll go that way. But knowing Cooper and how he plays,
if you've got Matthew Pekka completely healthy or Ryan Callahan on one leg, he's going to put Callahan in.
Yeah, no, it's not Cooper. Cooper goes with his guys. Okay, let's change to the news that came out last night that people in Buffalo were very happy.
Wait, are you talking about the pina colada Oreos that they just came out?
No,
that's the big news. No?
That sounds gross. What are they? The
I just saw it in the supermarket. Yeah, they're the vanilla ones, and now they have.
That is gross.
It's not even an Oreo anymore. Like, let's be real.
No. The Oreos with the coconut cream filling or the banana cream.
An Oreo had to have the black cookie. Then they switched over. I'm okay with that. But now it's pina colada filling and the vanilla outside. It is no longer an Oreo. Oreos are dead to me.
Well, Russ, there are purists who think that they jumped the shark when they went to double stuff.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. But what I was talking about is the Buffalo Sabres are very pleased because the San Jose Sharks signed Evander Kane to a 7-year extension for $7 million per. And while I can hold my laughter at that point, the Sabres will get a 2019, I believe, first-round pick because the pick in the deal that sent Kane to San Jose before the deadline was conditional based on him either them winning the Cup or him signing before July 1st. So they've agreed to the extension. And Peter, we've talked about Kane off and on for years with you, and okay, is he a good player? Yes. Is he? You know, he's young. I think he's 27. He's in the prime of his career, and he had a great finish at the end of the season and played very well for the Sharks in the playoffs. And there were no incidents, as were in Winnipeg or in Buffalo, in San Jose. I just think this guy was on his best behavior because he knew a payday was coming, and you're going to see the Evander Kane that was, frankly, an idiot in Buffalo on a couple incidents, and just not, you know, the NBA, they're going to the All-Star game, the stuff on Chippewa, you know, all this stuff that happened, I think, you know, was detrimental to the Sabres in his tenure here, and we know what happened with the Jets. I don't get San Jose putting this much faith in Evander Kane. What are your thoughts?
I don't understand why San Jose didn't let the market take a look at him first. That's what I don't understand. They set the market price, and right now, there are two agents who are going like this. They're rubbing their hands. You know who they are? JVRs and Patrick Laines. They are rubbing their hands. There were only 6 players in the league this year who scored more than 40 goals, so 41 and above. There were only 8 players who scored 40 or more. And between that, there were only, where are we here? 21 who scored 30 or more goals. Evander Kane had 29 goals.
Mm-hmm.
If $7 million is your new benchmark for scoring 29 goals, someone is going to take out Wilson, and like it's going to happen at the next GM's meeting. Someone's going to go over there and slap him on the back of the head and say thank you. Now, granted, I think someone should have done that with David Poyle after giving Johansson 8x8, 8x8.
Right.
But that's another issue altogether. I still look at that contract.
He's a center.
He's a center, but but that Wilson felt he had to go up to $7 million for Evander Kane.
I'll give you an answer why I think it happened.
Go ahead.
Well, let's hear.
Okay, so actually, first thing, my queen in the chat room says people can change. I mean, so far this year, we have to admit nothing's happened with Kane this whole year.
Yeah.
So maybe he has changed. We have to sort of at least look at that and say, all right, let's see what happens this offseason, because now he has a lot of money in his pocket. But so far, he's been a good citizen. He has.
Yeah, this season, yes. But
yes.
Can you say that he augmented his behavior based on the fact that this was probably the biggest year of his career, because now he's got his money, now he's got his security. If he starts acting like a punk in San Jose, then we know that he was putting on his best face and his best foot forward. But
I'm restarting the clock on him. I'm going to see now at this point. But here's the other thing, Peter. I think they added him right away, so when they go up to John Tavares on July 1st, they can say, this is what we have. We have a world-class goalie. If you come here, we could be right back in the thick of it. And you know what? It's hard to argue against it.
It's interesting. Let me throw something else. They
can buy out Paul Martin if they even want to get more cap space.
Which they will.
To throw something else out there, you would think if you're going to pay a guy $7 million, he's going to have some value to you on maybe special teams. You know how many points Evander Kane had on the power play this year?
How many?
9. You know how many goals he had? 3.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, like now you're paying $7 million to get 9 points out of a guy on the power play.
But for them, see, they're just looking at it for them, though. He did have 14 points in 17 games. Those are great numbers. They are.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the landscape for San Jose.
My point. Okay, sorry, Mike. Just go ahead.
Go ahead, Peter.
Okay, I was just going to say again, Russ. Though, I don't understand why San Jose had to not let the open market sort of say and come back and see where things were. There's that courting period. Everyone knows that this was going to be a proceed with caution player.
No, I know that, but I think
that's why I don't like. I understand what you're saying in terms of a bigger strategy.
Go after Tavares,
and you just risked $49 million on landing Jonathan Tavares.
But think about this, Peter. If you're Doug Wilson, if you don't do this with Kane and go after Tavares, you could lose Kane. I mean, you probably wouldn't, but you could, and you could lose Tavares too. Now
he doesn't he hasn't lost. He hasn't. See, here's the thing: he hasn't lost Tavares because he doesn't have him. He just can't attract.
But what I'm saying is, after you go after a Tavares, if you have Kane, you have a much better chance of attracting him than if you don't have him, because Tavares' age.
So on that line, sorry, Mike, I just got to throw this on that line. Who's Tavares been playing with for the last 2 years?
Well, Josh Bailey.
No, Andrew Ladd. Yeah. Remember the interview Kane gave where he said the 2 players he'd like to get in a fight with were Blake Wheeler and Andrew Ladd.
That doesn't matter with players, though. It doesn't.
Yeah, that's because they that's because they were in the locker room with him and in Winnipeg, and we don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe you know better than I the dynamic in that locker room. But when somebody's tracksuit's thrown in the shower,
Right.
I don't perceive him being a very popular player with his teammates.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And the point being is if Tavares is talking to anyone, and all of a sudden, San Jose throws him an offer, you think he goes and says, "Hey, laddie, what's going on with Kane? What's the beef?" These guys all talk.
Yeah,
but he already knows. I don't think.
Well, okay. This is
maybe he doesn't.
This is what's curious.
When you want a second opinion, just like Paul Stastny went and called his friend Blake Wheeler for a second opinion about coming to Winnipeg to make sure he understood.
Do I want to play with Andrew Ladd, who's closer to being finished than being good, or do I want to play with Evander Kane, who just came off a good season and a good run with the Sharks?
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Or do I want to play with Austin Matthews, or do I want to play with?
It doesn't matter how good of a season he is if he's a jerk, and that's the. I think
there've been a lot of good jerk players.
Sure, but Kane has the reputation of being a detriment to his team in spite of being a good player.
Look, I'm not anti Evander Kane. I'm more. He's a talented guy. He needs the right environment around him, and he needs the right leadership structure around him.
Correct.
You're doing you either have to have it in place or you have to build it. Now, and if you're building it for a guy that you've committed $7 million by 7 years for, I don't go down that process road. I think that's way too much a risk. Now,
well, let me say this first.
I just think I like them keeping Evander Kane is fine.
Well,
at $7 million, it's a bad idea.
Well, and this is the thing. You've made Evander Kane the highest paid forward on the team right now with that contract. Here, and this is the curious thing about San Jose. The extensions on Vlasic and Martin Jones kick in this year. Burns is locked up.
Right.
But now Couture and Pavelski are entering the final year of their contracts and are both UFAs. So the leadership group that maybe kept Evander Kane in check, that's up in the air right now because more than likely Thornton is gone, even though he says he'd be willing to take a 1 year, discounted hometown discount type of deal. I don't know whether at age 38 or 39, whatever he is, and with 2 serious knee injuries in the last 2 seasons, whether they're going to want to invest any kind of money or any kind of being dependent on Joe Thornton. So you're basically saying, Evander, here are the keys to the car because we don't know whether Couture and Pavelski are going to be back after next year.
Couture will be back. Pavelski's up in the air. But listen, Pavelski can be up in the air. I mean, Timo Meier had 21 goals. LeBanc had a 40-point season. Like, these guys are only going to get better. Hurdle woke back up with 22 goals. Like, they may not need Pavelski after this year. Couture will be back. That's a guarantee.
But I mean, they're in a position where they could spend the money on Tavares, like you said. They could buy out Paul Martin. They've got Ward and Hansen and Eric Ferrer dropping off. So I mean, they're going to have cap space, and it's Northern California, as you know, Peter, as you're going to visit fairly soon. Yeah. It's a nice place to live. But
I think it's a great place for someone like Evander Kane. Don't get me wrong. That's a fantastic place for him to be. It's just a matter of are you going to get $7 million of value out of this guy if you don't sign someone like Tavares?
Yeah. And you made the point, and I made it immediately after hearing about the contract last night. Not that I thought that there was any kind of great chance that James Van Riemsdyk was going to re-sign with Toronto, and he's a couple years older than Kane. He's 29 and Kane is 27. But I was thinking that the model or the comparable for Van Riemsdyk on a new contract was going to be the deals like Opozo and Lucic, the 7-year, $6 million AAV. Now with JVR scoring 36 goals, being the best winger, now he's the only. I mean, it was him and Kane. Now it's him. And Kane gets 7, I'd be shocked if he doesn't get $7 million.
No, he'll get 7.
Yeah,
he's getting.
Yeah, and that
7.3. Like he's getting something like that.
Yeah, and maybe it'll be shorter term because he's a couple years older. But I'll tell you right now, if there was a minuscule chance of Toronto signing him, it's gone now. It's not happening. Now,
we don't know what Toronto's end game is anymore. Kyle Dubas is not given word one as to what the plan is going forward. I can't assume they're under the same plan anymore.
And he's not going to, because
no, but that's my point.
Yeah.
We knew what they were going to do before. It was pretty predictable with Lou. I have no idea what Dubas is going to do.
Right. Now, switching to the Jets, you mentioned Line A and his contract coming up. I read a piece from the Winnipeg Sun. Ken Wiebe? I can't.
Ken Wiebe, yeah.
Yeah, that it sounds like Enstrom may be done. Period. Career. End of story.
So Toby Enstrom was very upset at being scratched for the final game, Game 5 against the Vegas Golden Knights. He claimed he played with a serious broken rib injury for much of that series.
Oh, I'm sure he did.
And interestingly, apparently, Paul Maurice denied that there was an injury. There's a rumor going around, and I'm going to say this, and I say this rumor. I have heard it. I haven't heard it from anyone I have a source with who's directly connected with the team. So I want to qualify that. It's a rumor. It might even be completely baseless, but there's enough people saying something that there's probably a little bit of smoke here. There were a number of Jets who were unhappy in their exit interviews with some of the decisions Paul Maurice made in that series. And there was some belief. Andrew Kopp was also not happy about being scratched. And there's some belief that there is a little bit of challenge to the coaching leadership. Again, it's nothing substantiated, but if you read between the lines, like Toby Enstrom literally skipped town. He wasn't even available yesterday. This is a guy who's played here since 2011. Him, Blake Wheeler, and Dustin Byfuglien.
Yeah.
Who else? That's it. I think the three of them.
I think that's it. Little's been there.
He was Little. And Enstrom literally is gone the day after. Cleared his locker and poof.
All right, but you know what, Peter? Here's my answer. I mean, he had 0 points in the playoffs. Zero.
Yeah. So did Ehlers.
I know, but he's expected to have points. He's not a great defender, as we know. And he had 20 points all year.
So Enstrom is a pretty good defender because when he's on the ice, the puck's usually going towards the other net. That's what you want.
He's pretty good. He's not a great defender.
I'm not saying he's the top of the league. I'm saying people look at him and say, oh, diminutive size, he doesn't do things. Well, actually, he does. It's just that he doesn't do it in the same way because he's not the size of a typical defender.
I let him go. I don't even care. If Enstrom's mad, I trade him. I don't care.
Look, I think the issue is that he's been a faithful soldier. He did the Jets a major favor at the expansion draft last year. Huge. Right. And all of a sudden, this is how it ends. I think there's some people, a lot of fans who are a little sad. Do I think he's replaceable? Absolutely.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. That's basically
it. But here's the thing. Andrew Kopp, 28 points in the regular season, 3 in the playoffs. Yeah. Pipe down. You got to show me something. He's got no
look. Russ, I'm not saying
I'm not saying this to you, Peter.
You're wrong.
This is what I would say to them.
Yeah, and again, we're dealing with sort of particularly Kopp because he's younger, a little different generation of player. You've got to, I think he's disappointed, but I think there's other underlying things that attribute to that disappointment that aren't being spoken of, and that's maybe where this leads. And maybe we get some of this later on. I suspect if a player like Enstrom signs elsewhere, we'll maybe hear a little bit of it, but you don't know. He's been he's not afraid to speak his mind. He just doesn't speak that often.
Well, here's the question, and obviously the name Trouba comes up, and we heard the news last week about him being open to staying there, reversing what the talk was a couple years ago about him wanting to get out. And Enstrom, $5.75 million was his salary. Trouba was on the bridge deal, making a little less than 3. I don't think it's going to be anything less than 6 a year on a 7 or 8 year deal for him to stay there. I mean, it's been, to me, it sounds like that they're basically going to transfer the money from Enstrom right to Truba. I mean, what's the feeling?
Which is what I would do.
That's it. So all the requirements have been met for Truba. Top minutes, top pairing, playing his preferred side, quality of the team. So if that's what he said back in 2016,
right,
when Kurt Overhart came out during the World Cup of Hockey and made this thing, all those requirements have been met.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's either that or there's another issue. And I don't think there is another issue. So if we take Truba true to his word, there you go. He's going to get a 7 or 8 year deal. It's going to be 6+. And I think that's what everyone sort of understood on. What's happened in the last little day or so is the natural inferiority complex that lives within the city of Winnipeg has been full on board. Is all of a sudden it's everyone's Sally Field moment where all the players saying, well, I'd sign here long term. Oh gosh darn, people like me. They really like me. Like, get over it. You've got a team that went to the Western Conference Final. It's young. It's got prospects in the pool. It's got stable ownership. And it's prepared to spend money, as they showed at the trade deadline, by trading for a guy with a $7.5 million salary. And they went to the cap. There'll be $300,000 under the cap when it's all said and done after bonuses. What more could you ask for in a team and an ownership other than it's maybe not New York City or Florida with the sunshine? It's everything's there. So sure, guys are going to say, yeah, I want to stay. Laine says, I like it. Oh my God, everyone in Winnipeg melted because Patrick Laine likes us. Well, if he didn't like it, if he didn't want to be here, it's not catastrophic. It's just that he didn't want to be here.
Right. What are his options? The KHL, the SM Liga? I mean, he's under.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's limited for another 5 years.
Yeah, Connor Hellebuck says he wants to sign here. He said we could maybe be a dynasty if we get things right. You know, he used the term dynasty last year or yesterday, and so all these things are happening. And the news stories are like players want to be here, Stasny wants to be here, all these things. So everyone's all happy and stuff, but there's still a ton of work to go. And if you go on Cap Central on the HockeyBuzz.com and you look at Winnipeg's cap situation. This is a complex jigsaw puzzle. Yeah. Because you still have the issue of bonuses for next year on the ELCs of Connor and Laine. And if Connor gets named to the all-rookie team, which I expect he will, there's another bonus for him. It's going to be very tight. And Kevin Cheveldayoff is really juggling some things. Yes, you've lost some salary, but you've got Little's new contract kicking in. You've got Kulikov at 3 more years. Right.
Yeah, that's
and then you've got Mason again, 2 more years. Sorry.
No. I'm looking at it right. I'm looking at Cap Central right now. So that
and then you got Mason's deal too, and such. So there's a lot of moving parts that have to happen, and Kevin Cheveldayoff and his team are going to have to be very deft at how they assign money, but how they structure this team to keep what's important and what works.
Right.
And I mean, I'm going to write about this because, you know, it's really easy to say there's a whole bunch of things to deal that Chevy has to deal with right after, you know, the exit interviews and the season's over and everyone's cleaned out their locker. But you need some time to really get perspective on it, because it's not just sign these players. It's you actually have to bring some more in, potentially 1 or 2 that are on those cheaper contracts from your system if you're going to pay up in the front for the stars. Right. And where does that happen? And how do they make that happen?
Actually, Peter, let's transition, because there's a list that Cap Friendly put out today of players whose team rights are set to expire. So all these guys are right around 20, 21, 22, and June 1st, they don't get signed, anybody can sign them.
Yeah,
that's going to be like the Wild Wild West. If I look at this list, I would say there's probably a good 25 names on here.
Yeah, so, and a couple of them, like Adam Masherin, who Adam
Masherin can score goals, man.
Yeah, he's the youngest guy on the list. He's 19 years old and is not re-signing with Florida, and that's, you know, Florida will probably trade him before June the 1st to some team.
He'll be traded at the draft. His rights will go.
No, it has to be June the 1st.
And Russ, that's a really good. Russ, that's a really good point, because given what we've seen with Vegas and who they chose and some of the cast-offs, our GM's going to be going and saying, how does this guy match what we just saw over here? How does, you know, have they learned anything from last year? And are these guys better to acquire because maybe they don't fit in the system for this team, but they sure as heck could fit in mine?
I'll give you some that I would sign. Masheron's a no-brainer. Tyler Soy with Anaheim, he had 92 points last year. He could score, man. He had 36 goals. This guy could skate.
This is in junior.
Yeah.
He was an overager in junior. It was a junior year. He was an overager at 21, but still he could score. Noah Carroll, defenseman. I think there's definitely something there. He is right now with Carolina. Carolina's got a couple weeks to sign him. They have a deep defense core, so they may not. So that guy could be out there. Keaton Middleton. I think Keaton Middleton can play some sort of role in the NHL, and the Leafs haven't signed him yet.
No, well, I've seen him a couple times, Russ. He's not been impressive in camp. I mean, he's big. Mm-hmm. I think of the two defensemen that they have, Mattinen, who's playing in the Memorial Cup right now with Hamilton.
I watch Mattinen. He's pretty good too.
Yeah, I think he's they'll probably get him on the ELC, but I'm not as sure about Middleton. He's a big guy. The other guy, JJ Pikanich, has been around for a while, and he's been on an AHL contract. So maybe they get him signed on that again. What about Sam Brook? I mean, I remember him when in his draft year that I thought he was fairly well regarded. And Detroit's a team that with defense, you would think that they would get him locked up, and he hasn't.
Was pretty well regarded. On a lot of these defensemen, Mike, I'm going to roll the dice. And Middleton, I'm at a 6'5". I'm going to roll the dice with him. I'm going to roll the dice because these are only, these are going to be cheap contracts. I'm rolling the dice on some of these guys if these teams are going to let them go, especially if I'm looking for depth.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like Toronto, they're very. Dubas is very into developing their own players. Their defense is not very big. You got a couple towering young prospects there. You don't know whether they'll be developmental models and they'll play with their ECHL team or their AHL team, whatever. But I think that they're more apt to sign these guys, and they'll probably get that done. But you don't know internally what they think of their development so far, so we really don't know.
But here's the thing. Okay, so like Toronto, who has guys on this list.
Yeah.
We now don't know what's going to happen with these guys simply because these are now from the leftover from the other regime. And you don't know what Kyle Dubas thinks about these guys. You don't.
Well, yes and no. He was part of that regime. So, I mean, it's going to be his personal.
Like Dubas's guys. Like when you're talking about his guys, they're not. They're Hunter's guys. And we don't know how he is going to regard guys that are not locked up.
Right.
And hanging out there. He could let them all go. Like Toronto's got 3 of them.
Sure.
And they could all go, and it wouldn't shock me simply because there's been a regime change.
Yeah, Mattinen was a London Knights defenseman who got moved. So, I mean, you're right.
Pretty good on the power play. He is.
They're gonna. I mean, they could get caught in the crossfire. Let's transition to in our remaining minutes here of the whole. I call it the tri-state, the teams, the New York area teams, the Rangers, the Islanders, and the Devils. I mean, obviously the Islanders have gotten the most news over the last couple of days with Lou Lamoriello moving there. And there was a report in Newsday today from Andrew Gross saying
we do have news, Mike. An hour ago, looks like Pension Plan Puppets reported the Leafs are not going to renew Middleton. He'll go back in the draft.
Okay, but Mattinen is the guy that they may sign.
I would draft Keaton Middleton with like a 7th round pick, no question.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yep.
But as I was saying, Andrew Gross from Newsday was saying that John Tavares was pleased that Lou Lamoriello was brought on board as president of hockey operations with full autonomy over decisions. And the league source that was the source of the story said that Lou, he has complete control, but they don't know whether this means any improvement in Tavares' chances of re-signing with the Islanders. I know that you said you had some news on the Islanders situation.
Yeah, the news on the Islanders situation is so they're not even going to break ground until 2019. So now it looks like that
was on the new building
on Belmont. So it looks like that 2020-21 scenario has to be perfect. Like there has to be perfect weather, perfect construction, everything for that place to be ready for that season.
No lawsuits, no nothing.
Yeah, none of that stuff. So, realistically, you're probably still looking at 3 years from now.
Wow.
That's realistically is probably what you're looking at for that building based on this.
And the thing here that's the most important about that time frame is, okay, John Tavares is 27 going on 28. You're talking about what, 2020 or 2021 until he plays in the new building. He'll be 31. His prime will be done.
Right.
I'm sorry, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he wants to stay in Brooklyn. He's loyal to the franchise, all that stuff. Maybe that'll be the final determining factor. If his goal is simply to win, to make the most money, and to play for the best team that has the best chance to win, there's no way I'm signing with the Islanders. I don't care what Lou Lamoriello
just came out yesterday. They haven't even decided how they're doing their train service yet. Like, Peter, none of this has been decided. So, all of this is askew. Tavares, it's said through league sources he's happy that Lou Lamoriello's there. I'm sure he's happy because now he'll get an offer from Lou, which will definitely help him shop it around and see if he can get a better offer. And I definitely know he is going to shop around. Like, I don't have any inside sources. I just think Lou doesn't have enough time to get Tavares to not take free agency and just get locked up.
Lou has some time to do some other things, though.
He does,
and that will be interesting to see. He's got basically a month to work some Lou magic.
Well, okay.
And if he's got anything left in the proverbial cat, he's going to have to pull it out pretty darn quick and do some things that are way beyond what the Islanders have done under Gar Snow and whatever owner you want to choose.
I don't think it's possible for him to solve even half the problems that are with that team right now. But the one thing, and we talked about this on previous shows, is that Lou has gone in like at the end with New Jersey and with Toronto, and the first thing that he did, and we know that this is the big problem with the Islanders, is get a goaltender, get a as good a goaltender as you possibly can. Now, I don't know who that is. I mean, we've speculated about Grubauer, we speculated about Jake Allen or somebody of that nature.
I John Gillies. I just want to be on the record.
Right, I know, but the thing is, Russ, and I'm not saying that Gillies wouldn't be a good answer, but the problem is that he's not established, and they don't know whether he's any better than what they have right now. I mean, I think he is.
Well, they're going to be stuck with one of the guys they have right now, so you can bring in Gillies too. That's my point.
But I think, what he did in Toronto is Frederik Andersen played in a conference final.
Mm-hmm.
Who's
out there that you can get played? Is he going to get Pekka Rinne, Mike? No, he can't.
Maybe he gets UC Saros.
No, but you know what I mean? There's not a guy like the goalie market has changed drastically since even then.
The one name that popped up, and I don't know how valid the rumor is or if it even makes sense, was Corey Crawford. If Chicago is willing to move on from Corey Crawford, then they're going to be having to find a goaltender because
the Islanders are going to spend like $12 million a year in net. I don't think so.
Well, Polak is a UFA, so he's out, but Grice is locked on a contract for another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, but
like $3.5–4 million a year, right? Like,
well, it depends on whether Grice goes back as part of the deal or if it's. Crawford's making $6 million and Grice is making. I think he's making over $3 million, so he's making high backup money. I'm sure you'd want a better solution than having him make $3 million as a backup. But I'm saying I think that's what that's the only thing that I think he can do before July 1st to improve the picture of the Islanders is to solve the goaltending issue. And if he does that, then maybe he increases the chances of Tavares re-upping with him. But I just think Tavares is going to do the same thing as Stamkos. He's going to go to the 5-day window and take offers.
Absolutely, he will.
Oh, he'd be foolish not to.
Yeah, he's gotten this far. It's not like Lou is going to change that. Now, Lou certainly can make headway. But here's the other thing, and this was sort of alarming to me. I guess it was on the Bob McCowan show that Lou said this yesterday. He's going to now talk to the architects to talk about the plans for the Belmont Arena. Like, forgive me, but I thought this arena was going to be built starting to be built this spring, and now they're still talking about like the plans.
Well, that's not unusual, Russ, because when the Air Canada Center was built, up until I think a couple months before they started breaking ground, it was a basketball only arena, but they had to make changes when the Leafs decided they were going to be part of it, and they had to change. And if you ask anybody who's been to Air Canada Center, the sight lines in certain instances are like a basketball arena. There's limited, or there's obstructed view that probably shouldn't be there, but the design had to be changed at the last minute.
But I'll tell you this, I expect Garth Snow to be there, and Brian Burke pretty much said the same thing on Sports Central in the afternoon, saying, hey, he and Lou work together pretty well. He expects him to be there.
Yeah, I don't think Garth Snow is going anywhere. Garth Snow hired Chris Lamorello, which is Lou's son. So I don't think that now that Lou is in, and you remember, Garth has a really nice contract that Charles Wong gave him. It's been reported that it's almost buyout proof. So I mean, essentially, if they fire him, he's going to get this full money. So I don't think Garth is going anywhere. Whether he has a lot of say in the decisions, I don't know.
Well, some say, I'm sure.
Yeah, but no. The only other thing is, if you look at the three teams in the New York area, it's ironic that the team that picked first overall in the draft last year in Chicago, they're the one that's best off, Russ. I mean, Ray Shero, he gets Vatanen. He hits the home run. I mean, Shearer's a very good player. He hit the home run with the Taylor Hall deal.
Mm-hmm.
He got in the playoffs. They have some good young prospects. They have cap room. They're in a position where they can add and not really hurt themselves. The Rangers are in a self-imposed rebuild with a college coach coming in who's presumably going to be there to work with young players, and the Islanders are a crap show. So I mean, I right now if I'm a Devils fan, I'm happy.
I don't know. I think Tavares will talk to these teams, but I think the one thing Lou is going to do is talk him out of being in the East. Period. Like how it's just going to be like, bad news when he comes in and those kinds of – I think Tavares will want to stay away from that. So I expect Tavares to stay away from like those Eastern teams. He'll definitely talk to Toronto. I don't even think he'll sign with Toronto because of the cap situation, future cap situation, I should say. I still think it's going to be a team like Detroit or Vancouver or San Jose or even Buffalo.
Vegas
too, yeah. Vegas too.
Yeah, I don't see Buffalo. I don't see Montreal. Why would you want to go to that?
No, I don't think Montreal at all.
I mean, Toronto. Let's just say this: if it's Toronto, if that's Kyle Dubas's grand play is to go make a pitch for Tavares, then you're going to see a very different Leaf team, because you're probably going to see guys like William Nylander and Jake Gardiner and a few other guys traded because they won't have the cap space to re-sign them or extend them. So it would be a dramatic change in Toronto. I would sort of like to see it because it would be a great story to write about, but I think it's going to happen. I think there's less chance of Tavares signing in Toronto than there was Stamkos, and Stamkos at the 11th hour just decided, I'm going back to Tampa for the tax-free money that I got from the Lightning. So yeah, we'll be talking about that the next month or so. That's not going to get solved until probably July 2nd.
Not at all.
So David Quinn was hired, right? So he's the Rangers' new coach, BU coach. He's going to build a new culture there. So they're clearly not going to go after Tavares now. They're not going to do anything big in free agency. They might pick up college free agents. They may pick up somebody young who's a free agent. And, even Nemestikov now, who knows what they're going to do with him. That'll be up to Quinn. And, he hasn't who knows how much he's even seen of him, like that's the thing. You've now got a college coach who's going to have to watch a lot of tape and decide about guys. I mean,
do you think there's possible they could trade Nemestikov?
Yeah, I do.
Well,
really?
What if Quinn looks at video and says he doesn't fit my system at all? Like, why would they re-sign him?
I'll tell you a team that would probably be interested in him, and that's Toronto.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, give it an example. Like this guy's got to come in now and do this. I cited some examples on XM this morning. Like the Rangers didn't win a cup with Herb Brooks, but he came in as a college coach. I know he won the Olympics, but he came in as a college coach, and he had a pretty successful run with them. He just didn't win a cup. But he also was going up against a lot of different things. I would say a lot more meddling garden management than what is there now. And so that was definitely a problem for him. But he also had the Smurfs, and he also was innovative. So you hope that Quinn can be innovative. But New York's a different animal. Like New York, there's no longer that pressure that used to exist for hockey. It's not that high anymore. But New York just has other pressure, like what are your players up to? What's everybody doing? The outside forces of New York cause a lot of pressure. And BU might seem like a big deal in college, but it's really small potatoes compared to like the New York Rangers. So this is going to be a little bit of a shock for him too.
Boy, MSG is going to be terrible the next couple of years. The Rangers going through a rebuild. The Knicks are
the Knicks are always going through.
Don't even talk about the Knicks.
Yeah, the Knicks don't even exist. I mean, but the idea is
until LeBron gets there, right?
Right. Yeah. No, he's going to he might go to Philly. He's been looking at schools here and everything. So
are you kidding me? Come on.
No, I'm not kidding.
Really?
Really. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, the Rangers might even trade a Zuccarello because at the end of the season, there were 3 guys when I was in the locker room that were steadfast about really making sure that they get back to the playoffs next year. Lundqvist, Zuccarello, and Zibanejad. Zibanejad is not going anywhere. He's the future for them. He's still very young. Lundqvist isn't going anywhere because of his contract. They could definitely get rid of Matt Zuccarello, and they might have to be able to change the culture because Lundqvist is going to play as hard as he can every game, no matter what. And the Rangers aren't going to try and lose. But if Quinn's going to want to install what he wants to install there, he might have to move Matt Zuccarello because Matt Zuccarello is so entrenched in being a veteran and doing things his way. I don't know if you're going to be able to turn a guy like that around with a rookie coach. So that is going to be the thing that he is going to go up against that I think is the most underrated is, what's going to happen in that locker room with some of those veterans. And Lindy Ruff is still there. Maybe July 1st he won't be, but Lindy Ruff is still there. I just want to point that out.
All right, quick prediction, and we got to go. I know, Russ, you're going to pick Washington, so pick the score tonight.
I'm going to say it's going to be Washington 4-3 and 1 overtime.
Peter?
I don't even know who I want to win. I think Washington has the motivation, but I think Tampa plays better and seals this off, and I think it's a 4-2 Tampa win.
Yeah, I have 3-1 Tampa with an empty netter. So we'll see what happens. We'll talk about it tomorrow. For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.